Ambassador Alina Reeves stood in the center of the council chamber, her hands clasped behind her back. Above her, 7 massive holographic projections looked down with expressions ranging from boredom to barely concealed disgust. These were the rulers of the Galactic Council, representatives of the 7 most powerful species in known space. Application denied, the Traxian delegate announced, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. For the 12th time, humanity has failed to meet the standards required for advanced membership. Alina kept her face neutral, though she had expected this. She had always expected this. May I ask why? She said calmly. The crystalline Korvath delegate made a sound like breaking glass, their version of laughter. Your species is too chaotic, too emotional. You lack the discipline required for true civilization. Fight among yourselves constantly, added the insectoid, Vryn representative. Your genetic code is unstable. You adapt too quickly, change too much. This is not evolution, this is chaos. And yet, Alina said carefully, humanity has successfully maintained peace in the Outer Rim territories for 15 years. We have established thriving colonies on worlds you deemed uninhabitable. Our trade routes are the most efficient in the galaxy. Mining in grunt work, the Traxian delegate said dismissively. Any primitive species can dig holes and haul cargo. This does not qualify you for a seat at this table. Lena felt a familiar anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Emotion, they said, was weakness. She would show them control. I understand, she said. Then I have one request. You are in no position to make requests, human, the Traxian said. A proposal, then, Alina corrected smoothly. The Outer Rim territories are, as you say, beneath the Council's attention. Dangerous asteroids, unstable systems, lawless frontier worlds. You have better things to do than manage such places. The Council members exchanged glances. She had their attention now. Grant humanity full administrative control of the Outer Rim, Alina continued. We will maintain order, continue resource extraction, and handle all the problems you find too tedious to deal with. In exchange, we ask only for the freedom to govern those territories as we see fit. The council chamber fell silent for a long moment. Alina could almost see the calculations happening behind their alien eyes. They saw an opportunity to dump responsibility for 40% of galactic territory onto a species they considered inferior. You would take responsibility for all those worthless systems? The Korvath asked suspiciously. Yes, Alina said simply. And you would continue to provide resources to the council? At current rates, yes. Yeah. The Traxian delegate leaned forward. You understand that the Outer Rim is poor, dangerous, and offers little opportunity for advancement? You would be condemning your species to permanent second-class status. Alina smiled slightly. We understand completely, the council voted quickly. Within minutes, humanity had been granted full control of the Outer Rim territories. As the holographic projections winked out one by one, Alina allowed herself a small, private smile. 3 months later, Admiral Chen Nakamura stood on the bridge of the UHN's Defiance, watching construction drones swarm around a massive structure taking shape in the Kepler 442 system. Around him, his officers worked quietly and efficiently. Status report, Nakamura said. Fortress Station 7 is 40% complete, sir, his tactical officer replied. Weapons platforms are online. Shield generators will be operational within 2 weeks. The fleet dispersed across 70 key systems, as ordered. Every major approach to the Outer Rim is now monitored. Nakamura nodded, satisfied. Around the galaxy, the Council species thought humanity had accepted permanent mediocrity. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. His communications officer suddenly straightened. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Ambassador Reeves. Put her through. Elena's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. Chen, we need to talk about something. The Council just received a disturbing report from the Delphic Union. 3 of their agricultural worlds have gone silent. Mechanical failure? Nakamura asked. You don't think so? The last transmission they received was a distress call. Something about shadows in space. Nakamura felt his stomach tighten. Shadows. Dr. Kim is analyzing the data now, Alina said. But Chen, if this is what we think it is, ... She didn't need to finish. They had both read the classified reports, the ancient warnings found in dead civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Stories of a species that came from beyond known space. A species that consumed everything in its path. How long before the Council responds? Nakamura asked. They're still arguing about jurisdiction, Alina said with frustration. The Delphic Union is a minor power. The Council won't mobilize unless a major species is threatened. Of course not, Nakamura said bitterly. 3 days later, the entire galaxy learned the truth. A massive armada emerged from dark space, a living swarm of biomechanical ships that moved like a single organism. The Catharon swarm had arrived, and within 72 hours, 6 worlds fell silent. The age of Council arrogance was about to end. The age of humanity was about to begin. But first, the galaxy would pay a terrible price for underestimating the chaos that humans called strength. They underestimated humanity, and the galaxy paid the price. Part 2. The swarm descends. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Holographic displays showed planet after planet going dark as the Catharon swarm advanced through Delphic space. The insectoid Vrin representative was clicking frantically, demanding immediate defensive action. The Korvath wanted to establish a quarantine zone. The Traxians argued for mobilizing their grand fleet. Nobody could agree on anything. Ambassador Alina Reeves watched from the observer's gallery, her jaw tight with frustration. Below, the council members argued about protocols, jurisdiction, and proper procedure, while entire civilizations died. How many now? She whispered to her aide. 9 worlds silent, the young man replied quietly. Population estimates suggest 15 billion casualties. Lena closed her eyes briefly. 15 billion lives. The council was still arguing about which committee should handle the response. Finally, the Traxian delegate raised all 4 arms for silence. Enough. The Grand Fleet will deploy immediately. We will crush this swarm with overwhelming force. And humanity. The Vrin representative asked. They have ships in the region. Humans will support our operations, the Traxian said dismissively. They will follow our commands and provide rearguard support. Nothing more. Alina stood up. With respect, Council, human forces are already engaged with the swarm. We have valuable tactical data. Rearguard duty, the Traxian interrupted firmly. This is not a discussion, Ambassador. Your species lacks the experience for frontline combat against a threat of this magnitude. Alina bit back her response. There was no point arguing. Not yet. Captain Yuki Tanaka gripped the armrests of her command chair as the UHN's wildfire shuddered under enemy fire. Around her frigate, 3 other human ships darted and weaved through space, engaging the leading edge of a swarm tendril. Pattern Charlie Neen, she ordered sharply. Hit them from below. Break off at 60 seconds. Regroup at Rally Point Echo. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. The wildfire dove beneath a cluster of swarm ships, fired a full missile spread, and accelerated away at an angle that made no tactical sense according to standard doctrine. That was exactly the point, Direct Hits confirmed, her weapons officer reported. 6 enemy ships destroyed. Swarm is attempting to pursue, Tactical added. Wait. They're breaking off. They look confused. Tanaka smiled grimly. The swarm was a hive-mind organism. It thought in patterns, predicted patterns, adapted to patterns. But human tactics didn't follow patterns. They were deliberately chaotic, irrational, unpredictable. Her communications officer suddenly tensed. Captain, we're receiving an emergency broadcast from the Raxian Grand Fleet. They've engaged the main swarm force, put it through. The bridge filled with the sounds of weapons, fire, and screaming. Through the chaos, she heard a Traxian commander shouting orders. Maintain formation, Beta 7. All ships, focus fire on Sector 9. Tanaka's blood ran cold. They were fighting by the book, using the same rigid battle formations that had worked for 10,000 years. The swarm would adapt to that in minutes. Get me Admiral Nakamura, she said urgently. Now, the Battle of Arcturus Reach lasted for hours. When it was over, 60% of the Traxian Grand Fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The swarm had adapted to their tactics within the first hour, turning their own discipline and coordination. Against them, human frigates had managed to evacuate 30,000 Traxian survivors. Along with 200,000 Delphic refugees from nearby planets, it was something, but not enough. Admiral Nakamura stood in his ready room, watching the casualty reports scroll across his screen. His executive officer, Commander Park, stood beside him in silence. "The Council is blaming us," Park finally said quietly. "Of course they are," Nakamura replied without emotion. "We were supposed to be in the rear. We disobeyed orders to conduct evacuations. We saved 200,000 lives. They see 200,000 failures," Nakamura said. 200,000 beings they couldn't protect themselves. His console chimed. Ambassador Reeves' face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted. "Chen, the Council wants to meet with you. They're desperate." "Let me guess," Nakamura said. "They want our help now." "I won't say it officially," Elena said. "But yes. The Korvath homeworld's orbital defenses just fell. The swarm is adapting faster than anyone predicted. They're consuming planets at an accelerating rate. And they still won't give us operational command." Lena hesitated. "I may have a solution. There's a faction within the Council, led by the Delphic Union and a young Traxian commander named Krethsek. They saw what your tactics did. They saw you save their people when their own fleets couldn't. How much support do they have? Not enough to overrule the Council officially. But Chen, if you can really show them that human tactics work, that we can win this." Nakamura turned to look out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the glow of a burning world. Another planet consumed by the swarm. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Intelligence suggests the swarm will reach Council core space in 2 weeks," Alina said. "After that, they'll hit the population centers." "Trillions of lives, Chen." Nakamura made his decision. "Tell the Council I'll meet with them. But Alina, make sure they understand something." "What's that?" "If they want humanity to save them, they're going to have to admit they were wrong about us. Publicly. Completely. No more primitive species talk. No more rearguard duty." Lena smiled slightly. "I'll tell them." As the transmission ended, Commander Park spoke quietly. "Sir, the crew is exhausted. Our ships are damaged. We're spread thin across the entire outer rim." "I know," Nakamura said. "But we're about to show the galaxy what humanity does best." "What's that, sir?" Nakamura's expression hardened with determination. "We adapt. We survive. And we protect those who can't protect themselves. Even the ones who look down on us." The war had just begun, and humanity was done asking for permission. They underestimated humanity, and the galaxy paid the price. Part 3. The human gambit. The relocated council chamber was a fortress now, hidden deep within a moon orbiting the Korvath secondary homeworld. The 7 council members sat in their physical forms this time. No holograms, no distance. This meeting was too important for anything less than their actual presence. Admiral Chen Nakamura stood before them, his uniform crisp despite 3 weeks of continuous combat operations. Behind him, Ambassador Alina Reeves remained silent, letting him speak. "You're asking for complete operational command?" The Traxian delegate said, his voice tight with anger. "You, a species that has never commanded a major fleet action, want us to hand over our entire military?" "Not hand over," Nakamura said calmly. "Coordinate. Your ships, your crews, but under unified human tactical doctrine." "Unacceptable," the Korvath representative said, their crystalline form flickering with agitation. "We have fought wars for 10,000 years. Your species has barely left your own solar system for 2 centuries. And yet," Nakamura said, pulling up a holographic display in the last 3 weeks, "human forces have engaged the swarm 47 times. Our casualty rate is 12%. The combined council fleets have engaged 19 times. Their casualty rate is 68%. The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. We fight smart, not hard," Nakamura continued. We don't try to overpower the swarm. We confuse it. We make it hesitate. We make it doubt. The swarm is a hive mind, the Vrin representative clicked. It does not doubt, does now, Nakamura said, because it's never faced an enemy that refuses to be predictable. Every species in this room fights with honor, with tradition, with established doctrine. The swarm adapts to that. But humans. He smiled slightly. We were never taught to fight fair. A young Traxian officer suddenly stepped forward from the observer section. Council, I request permission to speak. The lead Traxian delegate's eyes widened. Commander Krethzak. This is highly irregular. I was at Arcturus Reach, Krethzak said, his voice firm. I commanded a battlecruiser in the Grand Fleet. I watched our forces die following doctrine, as served us for millennia. And I watched human frigate ships 1/10 our size dance through enemy fire like it was a training exercise. They saved my crew. They saved me. Commander, you will return to your position, the delegate ordered. Krethzak didn't move. With respect, honored elder, if we do not listen to the humans now, there will be no one left to maintain our traditions. The swarm will consume us all. The chamber fell silent. Finally, the Delthic Union representative spoke, her voice soft but clear. Humanity saved 200,000 of my people. They asked for nothing in return. They simply ... helped. When was the last time any of us did something without calculating the benefit? The Traxian delegate looked around the chamber. He could see the truth in every face. They were losing. Without change, they would all die. What are your terms? He finally asked. Full operational command of all military forces, Nakamura said. Access to all military infrastructure. Complete freedom to implement new tactical protocols. And most importantly, no interference. If you give me command, you have to trust me. All of you, and if we refuse? The Korvath asked. Nakamura met their crystalline gaze steadily. Then humanity will defend our own territory, and you're welcome to face the swarm with your traditional methods. We've already begun evacuating human colonies from the projected swarm path. It was a bluff, but only partially. Humanity couldn't stand alone against the swarm. But Nakamura needed them to believe he would try. The council members conferred in whispers and alien languages. Finally, they turned back. Agreed, the Traxian delegate said, though each word seemed to pain him. You have command, Admiral Nakamura? Prove that humanity deserves it. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in a sterile laboratory, watching a captured swarm specimen through reinforced glass. The creature, if it could be called that, was a twisted mass of biological tissue and mechanical components, pulsing with an eerie blue light. It's beautiful in a horrifying way, her assistant said. It's predictable, Sarah corrected. Watch. She triggered a series of laser patterns on the wall of the containment cell, regular, geometric, consistent. The swarm specimen immediately oriented toward the pattern, beginning to pulse in sync with it. It's trying to adapt, Sarah explained. To predict the pattern and counter it? Now watch this. She switched to a new pattern, chaotic random with no discernible rhythm. The specimen's pulsing became erratic. It withdrew into a corner of the cell. It's confused, her assistant said in wonder. Exactly. The swarm's greatest strength is pattern recognition and adaptation. But it's also their weakness. They expect rationality, order, logic. Hit them with pure chaos, and they don't know how to respond. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing fleet movements across 3 star systems. Admiral Nakamura is implementing this on a galactic scale. We're teaching every species to fight like humans, messy, unpredictable, and just a little bit insane. Her console beeped with an incoming message. She read it and smiled. The Admiral wants you in the war room, her assistant said. They're planning something big. Tell him I'm on my way, Sarah said, taking one last look at the confused swarm specimen. I think I know exactly what he needs. The Battle of Arcturus Station began at dawn, or what passed for dawn in the vacuum of space. Admiral Nakamura commanded a fleet of over 2,000 ships representing 6 different species, all following human tactical doctrine for the first time. Our units? This is Defiance, Actual, Nakamura said over the fleet-wide channel. You've all been briefed on the Chaos Protocol. I know it goes against everything you've been taught. I know it feels wrong. But I need you to trust me. Trust yourselves. Trust your instincts. On the tactical display, a massive swarm tendril approached, over 5,000 ships moving in perfect coordination.
Remember.
Captain Tanaka added from her position commanding a strike group. There is no pattern, no formation. Every captain makes their own decisions. Be unpredictable. Be creative. Be human. Commander Krethzak, now commanding a mixed squadron of Traxian and human ships, felt his combat instincts screaming at him to maintain formation. Instead, he took a deep breath and shouted an order that would have gotten him court-martialed a month ago. All ships break formation. Attack at will. The Allied fleet scattered like startled birds, each ship choosing its own vector, its own target, its own crazy maneuver. To outside observers, it looked like complete chaos. To the swarm, it was incomprehensible. For the first time since the war began, the swarm hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, humanity struck. They underestimated humanity, and the galaxy paid the price. Part 4. The price of victory. Admiral Nakamura stood before a holographic star map that showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated swarm-controlled territory. Blue markers showed Allied positions. And in the center, a cluster of green markers represented the galactic core homed at 80% of all sentient life in known space. The swarm was 3 weeks away from reaching it around the war. Room table sat representatives from every major species, along with Ambassador Reeves and Dr. Kim. The air was heavy with tension. The swarm's main fleet is 10 times larger than anything we've faced, Nakamura said quietly. If it reaches the core worlds, nothing we do will matter. Too many targets, too much space to defend. Then we stop them before they get there, Commander Krethzak said. Since proving himself in battle, he had become Nakamura's most trusted alien officer. With what? The Korvath representative asked. We're already spread across 50 systems. Our forces are exhausted. Nakamura zoomed the map to show the Outer Rim territories, the vast region humanity controlled. We stop them here. In human space, the room fell silent. You want to lure them into the Outer Rim? Alina said slowly. Chen, those are our colonies, our worlds. I know, Nakamura said, his voice heavy. Dr. Kim, please explain Operation Wildfire. Sarah stood, pulling up a new display. We've analyzed the swarm's behavior extensively. They're driven by consumption. They need resources to grow. If we make the Outer Rim appear to be retreating, vulnerable, and rich with resources, they'll commit their entire fleet to capturing it. And then? The Traxian delegate asked. And then we turn 40 human star systems into a death trap, Nakamura said flatly. We've been seeding unstable stars with catalytic devices for weeks. When the swarm fleet is fully committed, we detonate them simultaneously. The resulting supernovas will create a barrier of radiation and gravitational chaos that nothing can cross. They'll kill the swarm. Fleet, a Delphic officer said in awe, and everything else in those systems, Alina added quietly. Chen, there are still human colonies in the Outer Rim, millions of people. We evacuate everyone we can, Nakamura said. But some will have to stay behind to maintain the illusion. Volunteers. People who understand what's at stake. The room erupted in argument. The alien delegates couldn't believe humanity would sacrifice so much. Even the human officers looked shocked. Krethzak stood, silencing the room. I do not understand you humans, he said slowly. My people would never sacrifice our own worlds like this. We would fight to the last soldier before destroying our homelands. That's why you're losing, Captain Tanaka said from her position by the door. Her ship had been heavily damaged in the last engagement, but she refused to stay in medical. You fight for honor. For tradition, we fight to survive. And sometimes, survival means making choices that hurt. This is madness, the Korvath representative said. Yes, Nakamura agreed. But it's the kind of madness that wins wars. The vote was close, but it passed. Operation Wildfire was authorized. 3 weeks later, Captain Tanaka commanded the Bait Fleet, a collection of damaged ships, automated drones, and volunteers. Their job was simple and suicidal: stay ahead of the Swarm Fleet, look vulnerable, and keep them chasing. Swarm Fleet is pursuing, her tactical officer reported. They're taking the bait. Tanaka watched her sensors as thousands of swarm ships closed the distance. Behind her, the Outer Rim colonies flickered with signs of life power signatures. Communication traffic, all carefully maintained by the volunteers who had chosen to stay behind. She thought of her own family. Her brother had evacuated successfully, but her mother had volunteered to stay on Kepler Station, maintaining the defense grid until the end. They'd said goodbye 2 days ago via video call. Her mother had smiled and told her to be brave. All ships maintain current speed, Tanaka ordered. We need them fully committed before we spring the trap. On the far side of the Outer Rim, Admiral Nakamura watched the tactical display in silence. Dr. Kim stood beside him, her hands clenched into fists. Swarm main fleet is 95% inside the target zone, his tactical officer reported. Remaining 5% crossing the threshold now. Give Captain Tanaka the order to break off, Nakamura said quietly, and prepare to activate Operation Wildfire. Across 40 star systems, human ships began emergency jumps to pre-positioned safe zones. Most made it. Some didn't. Tanaka's Wildfire was one of the lucky ones. Her ship jumped clear just as Nakamura gave the final order. All units, execute Wildfire. May God forgive us. 40 stars died in perfect synchronization. The explosions cascaded, each triggering the next, creating a wall of death that stretched across thousands of light years. The Swarm Fleet, caught in the center, was incinerated instantly. Nakamura watched the sensors go white with radiation. When they cleared, the Swarm Fleet was gone. 70% of their total forces destroyed in a single moment, but the price had been paid. 40 human star systems, hundreds of colonies, millions of volunteers who had stayed behind to maintain the illusion until the end. The war room was silent, except for quiet weeping. Dr. Kim had her face in her hands. Commander Krethzak stood at attention, his forearms crossed over his chest in a Raxian salute of honor. They saved us all, he said quietly. Every species in this galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. Elena placed a hand on Nakamura's shoulder. The Admiral's face was carved from stone, but his eyes betrayed the weight of what he'd done. It's not over, he said quietly. The remaining swarm forces are still out there, and now we have to deal with the political fallout. As if on cue, his console chimed. An official message from the Traxian Council: Operation Wildfire was not authorized under proper protocols. Admiral Nakamura is hereby ordered to return command to Council authority effective immediately. Lena read the message over his shoulder and felt fury rise in her chest. After everything we sacrificed, they're going back to politics as usual. They're scared, Dr. Kim said quietly. We prove that humans are willing to do what they can't. We're unpredictable, dangerous. They want control back before we become more powerful than them. Nakamura smiled, slightly a cold, dangerous expression. Let them try. Outside, the galaxy was still burning. But the swarm had been broken, and humanity had proven itself in the most terrible way possible. The question now was, what would they do with that power? They underestimated humanity, and the galaxy paid the price, ##. Part 5. The new galaxy. 6 months had passed since Operation Wildfire. The galaxy was rebuilding, but nothing would ever be the same. Ambassador Alina Reeves walked through the Memorial Garden on Unity Station, a newly constructed facility that served as neutral ground for diplomatic meetings. The garden contained 40 trees, one for each star system humanity had sacrificed. Beneath each tree was a stone bearing the names of those who had stayed behind. She stopped at one. Tree in particular, a cherry blossom from Earth. The stone beneath it listed 342 names, including Captain Yuki Tanaka's mother. They called it the price of victory, a familiar voice said behind her. Alina turned to see Admiral Nakamura, now retired from active duty, but still wearing his uniform for official occasions. He looked older, the weight of command having left permanent lines on his face. "The Council is voting today," Alina said, "on whether to grant humanity full advanced membership. With conditions, I assume," Nakamura said dryly. "Of course, they want to limit our military authority, restrict our territorial expansion, establish oversight committees." Elena's voice was bitter. "They're terrified of us now. We saved them, and they can't forgive us for it. Because we showed them their own weakness," Nakamura said. He gestured to the trees around them. "This is what they can't understand. We sacrificed our own worlds to save theirs. What species does that? What kind of people value others' lives more than their own?" "Dangerous ones," Elena said. "At least that's how they see it now," her communicator chimed. "Ambassador, the Council is ready for you." The reformed council chamber was packed with representatives from over 100 species. The 7 traditional council members sat in their elevated positions. But for the first time in galactic history, they faced an audience that was not afraid to question them. "The motion before us," the Traxian delegate announced, "is to grant humanity full advanced membership status. Debate is now open." A Delphic representative stood immediately. "I speak in favor. Humanity saved my species. 200,000 of my people are alive today because human ships evacuated them when no one else would. We owe them everything." "I also speak in favor," Commander Krethzak said, standing in his position among the junior Traxian officers. "I fought beside humans. I learned from them. They taught us that strength without adaptability is weakness. Honor without pragmatism is suicide." The lead Traxian delegate's eyes flashed with anger. "Commander, you speak out of turn with respect." "Honored elder, I speak from experience," Kreth interrupted. "Something this council lacks regarding humanity." Gasps echoed through the chamber. A junior officer had just publicly challenged a council elder. The Korvath representative stood. "This is precisely the problem. Humanity brings chaos wherever they go. Look at Commander Krethsequence, a model officer, now openly defying his superiors. This is the human influence." "This is the future," Alina said, standing from her position. "Commander Krethzak isn't being disrespectful. He's thinking for himself. Something every species in this room should learn to do. You would have us abandon millennia of tradition." The Traxian delegate demanded. "I would have you survive," Alina replied calmly. "Your traditions nearly got you all killed. Human chaos saved you. And now you want to grant us membership, but only if we agree to let you control us. That's not membership. That's a leash. Then what do you propose?" the Delphi representative asked. Alina took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. Humanity rejects the current offer. Instead, we propose a complete reformation of the Galactic Council. Equal representation for all species, regardless of age or power. Democratic voting procedures. No more Council of 7 deciding the fate of the galaxy. The chamber erupted into chaos. The traditional council members stood in outrage. But Alina noticed something else. Dozens of junior delegates and representatives from smaller species were nodding in agreement. "This is unacceptable," the Traxian delegate shouted over the noise. "The Council has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years. And it failed in 3 weeks when a real threat appeared," Alina shot back. "Your system is broken. The swarm proved it. The question is whether you're brave enough to admit it." The Vryn representative clicked thoughtfully. "A bold proposal. But why should we trust humanity to lead this reformation?" "You shouldn't," Alina said simply. "Trust yourselves. Trust your own people. Trust that every species has something valuable to contribute. That's the lesson humanity learned centuries ago. We were divided once, fighting among ourselves. We nearly destroyed our own planet. But we learned to value diversity, to see strength in differences, not weakness." Dr. Sarah Kim stood from her position among the observers. "May I speak?" The council members looked confused. Scientists rarely participated in political debates, but the presiding officer nodded. "I've spent the last 6 months studying the swarm remnants," Sarah said. "The ones that were cut off from the main hive mind. Do you know what happened to them?" "They died, I assume," the Korvath said. No, Sarah said with a slight smile. They developed individual consciousness. They learned to think for themselves. We've been communicating with them. They're requesting membership in the new Galactic Council. The chamber fell silent in shock. The swarm? The Traxian delegate said in disbelief. You want to grant our enemy membership? They're not our enemy anymore, Sarah said. They're individuals now. And they understand something that took them millions of years to learn, that a hive mind, no matter how powerful, will always be defeated by individuals working together through choice, not compulsion. Lena saw her opening. The vote before you isn't just about humanity. It's about whether this galaxy will be ruled by 7 species clinging to old power, or led by hundreds of species working together. Yes, it will be messy. Yes, it will be chaotic. Yes, it will be very, very human. But it will survive, Commander Kretzak added, his voice firm. And isn't survival what we all want? The presiding officer called for a vote. It took 3 hours to tally, as every species present demanded their voice be heard. When the results came in, Alina felt her heart race. The motion passed. Barely, but it passed. 1 year later, Alina Reeves stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching construction ships build the new council chamber, a massive structure designed to hold representatives from every known species. Admiral Nakamura joined her, along with Captain Tanaka now, Admiral Tanaka, commander of the first truly multinational fleet. You did it, Nakamura said quietly. We all did it, Alina corrected. Humans, Traxians, Delthic, even the reformed swarm. Together. Some of the old council members still resist, Tanaka noted. There are rumors of traditional factions forming. Let them, Alina said. Democracy is messy. There will always be disagreements. But at least now, everyone has a voice. Below them, a school ship docked at the station. Through the windows, Alina could see students, human children, sitting beside young Traxians, Delthic adolescents, and even a few swarm juveniles. All learning together. Dr. Sarah Kim was down there, Alina knew, teaching a class on the importance of diverse thinking and the dangers of rigid certainty. What's next for you? Nakamura asked. Alina smiled. The council elected me as Secretary General. I start next week. What about you? Retirement, actually, Nakamura said, looking peaceful for the first time in years. I'm going back to Earth, going to grow tomatoes. Tomatoes? Tanaka said with a laugh. Tomatoes, Nakamura confirmed. I've made enough hard decisions for one lifetime. Time to make small ones. Like whether to use fertilizer or compost. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy rebuild itself. You think they finally understand us? Tanaka asked. The other species? No, Alina said honestly. But they're starting to. We showed them that chaos isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. That emotion isn't weakness. It's strength. That sacrifice isn't foolishness, it's love. We paid a high price to teach them that, Nakamura said softly. The galaxy paid the price, Alina corrected. For underestimating what humanity could be, but maybe that price bought us something value, a chance to build something better together. Far below in the memorial garden, a new tree was being planted. Not for a lost colony, but as a symbol of hope. Children from a dozen species played around it, their laughter echoing through the station. The age of human mediocrity was over. The age of galactic arrogance was dead. What came next was uncertain, chaotic, and unpredictable. In other words, was very, very human. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. The end.